Good morning, friends, and welcome to Building Solutions Together, moral injury problem solving and using supports. We are so excited that you're taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today. I'm Mary Catherine from COPSA, and I'm joined by my colleagues here. Edna Pilch is here with us from Care to Caregivers, and Dr. Michelle Zechner is here with us to help with delivering our training here today. And Laura Burns is here for all of our tech support and our continuing education support. So thank you, friends, for showing up here today. So this session is going to be recorded. I know many of us may have colleagues who weren't able to attend today, and we might want to share with some of our teammates. So we will have a recording that you can share with them. So we just ask you to be mindful. We love for this to be interactive. The more you're sharing and telling us how these concepts impact you, the richer the session is for everyone. So if you are sharing anything related to a client, we ask that you please be mindful and don't use any personal identifiers when talking about the case that you might be sharing as well. Or if you're sharing anything about yourself as well, just be mindful that other people may be watching this recording. So we are here today until 12 o'clock, and we're going to ask everybody to, well, Laura will go over the details here with us, but if you fill out all the paperwork, you will get continuing education credits on that. So I'm going to defer to Laura right now to give us our spiel on how to navigate the CEs.
Thank you, everyone. So before we start, I just want to let everyone know that myself, Mary Catherine, Michelle, as planners for this educational activity, we do not have any financial um, relevant disclosures to share. All of the information that we are presenting here today is for educational purposes only. Um, Further information, if you need to reread it, is on our Cloud CME website if you have details about the continuing education. I will be putting a link in the chat just to confirm that you are interested in continuing education credits. That is step one of our process. Step two is going back to Cloud CME, where you register to complete your post-program evaluation. Um, June is a busy season for us because it's the end of the fiscal year, so we will do our best to have a turnaround to give you access to your education and your continuing education credits and evaluation by the end of the month. Again, if you have questions, you can always reach out to us at Rutgers UBHC, CCE, and I'll put all of that information in the chat. Without further ado, I will hand the program back over to our experts. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. So everyone, please type your name in chat, and that is your record that you have started with us, and then you'll be asked at the end to fill out a QR code too, and that will be your exit, so we can confirm that you actually are here. So thank you everybody for doing that. And I forgot to tell everybody, why are we talking about this? I got so concerned with the details here. For those of us who work in aging services, it can be very, very rewarding. I'm so fortunate. I had my 31st anniversary on May 15th of this year, and I love what I do. I love working with older adults. I love working with those who support older adults. So I find it very rewarding. But there are lots of days, and maybe you can relate to this too, where some days we might wrap up the day and we feel really good. Wow, that was a great day. I had some really good connections and I was really able to support some people. But I get lots of days, and maybe you do too, where I wrap up the day and I'm like, that was a really rough day. Like I had an encounter with someone and I felt like I just wasn't able to do anything to help them. I get complex cases all day long, and I am sure that everybody here is dealing with complex cases on a daily basis. And sometimes it's hard to know, how can I support that person when sometimes we don't have enough services that are there that can help address the real issues that people are dealing with. So sometimes we can get a case, maybe one of those cases a day, one a week, but sometimes we get a lot of those cases and they just seem to pile up. And we can have a series of days where we're dealing with some distressing situations and some complex problems. And that distress can build up and that can start to have an impact on us. And it can start to impact how we feel about ourselves as professionals, how we feel about ourselves outside the job as well. And it can start to impact how we're showing up for the people who we are supporting at work. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the things that challenge us on the job and sometimes can leave a lasting impact. We're going to learn about some simple strategies we can use to help us deal with the distress and with the injury that we might encounter on the job. And hopefully, you're going to walk away today with some tools that are going to help you better manage with confidence and with ease complex cases. So, hopefully, that is our intention here today. You're going to leave knowing a little bit more than when you showed up here today. And hopefully, we're going to be enriched by the sharing that we offer in our chat and with unmuting. We will have time to unmute as well. So, but as we're getting started, we would love to hear where everybody is logging in from. If you'd let us know maybe the agency where you work and what your role is and your county. We love seeing all the different counties where everybody is coming from around the state. So if you want to pop in chat there. So the Office on Aging, CSPNJ support worker from Salem. So Division of Aging from the Jack program in Morris County. Already we're hitting all areas of the state here. Asbury Park from Senior Housing, Jewish Family Services, Metro West. You're up north. Welcome. We have social workers who are here. We have nurses who are here. Hunterdon, Diocesan Housing. Wow. Adult Protective Services. Office on Aging from Burlington County. Everybody's coming in fast here. We care from Adult Day. Well, welcome to our Adult Day friends. Bright Side social worker. Wonderful. So it seems like we have a really good representation here, people from around the state and people who have different roles as well. The information that we're going to share today is really role specific as well. We're going to talk about some general categories, but it might impact you in your role a little bit different than other people. So we really look forward to everybody sharing in chat with us how this kind of impacts what they're going through. So welcome, friends from all over the state. Keep that coming in here. We'd love to see where everybody is coming from. You might have a neighbor who's here and you don't even know about that. So that might be a nice way to connect. Greystone from our state psychiatric hospital. We know you're seeing lots of challenging cases on a daily basis, as I'm sure everyone here is. So by the end of our time today, we hope that you will be able to define moral injury and distinguish it from moral distress. We hope that you'll be able to list some individual, some team, and some system strategies to prevent moral injury. And then our final is that you'll be able to describe and apply the CPR problem-solving framework to complex aging services scenarios. So we're going to get started and we're going to go over some terms. And you might be wondering, why are we talking about this stuff? You know, this was billed as we're going to talk about problem solving. Well, we are going to talk about problem solving, but sometimes lots of things can happen when we're dealing with these complex cases and trying to solve pretty, you know, intense stuff that people might be calling us about, or people who are living in our building or attending our adult day programs as well. So it's important for us to understand these terms, to know what these terms are, to understand these concepts. So going forward, we have words to name this if we're experiencing it, or if there are things that are going on in our agency, we have words that we can kind of educate our colleagues about as well. And that gives us all language. And having the ability to name it can kind of help us better deal with these situations as well. Being able to talk about how we may be feeling can help us gain power over what we're going through. It can prevent us from becoming stuck in a challenging situation, and it can help us move forward in ways that can enrich us professionally and also those that we are serving at work. So our first term for the day, and don't worry about writing any of this down because Michelle has created beautiful handouts that summarize everything that we're talking about today. After our session today, you will receive a follow-up email that has all the handouts on it that you can copy, you can share with your colleagues, and you can share with the clients that you're serving as well. So moral distress is knowing the right thing to do but being restricted. And we're going to talk about some examples of that. And then moral injury is the lasting psychological, social, and or spiritual impact from exposure to events that violate your deeply held moral beliefs. So distress is more the situation that can happen. It can be isolated. We can have many of those isolated events. And then the moral injury is the lasting impact that that can have on us over time. So the difference, the distress is feeling blocked. The injury is the lasting wound to your sense of self and values. So now when we think back to COVID, this is like the best example I can think of that we can probably all relate to when we think about our collective history. But remember back when COVID first started and we were all trying to figure out what to do and how to keep people safe. Remember when we didn't have personal protective equipment, like we didn't have gloves and we didn't have masks. There was an extreme shortage of those. That was a distressing situation for healthcare workers, right? For all of us. So we knew that we wanted to be able to protect ourselves on the job and we wanted to be able to help people, but we kind of had constraints because of extraneous things that were going on at that time. Another extreme example was during COVID when the medical community realized that we needed ventilators to help keep people alive and get them over the worst part of COVID, but we didn't have enough ventilators, right? So then medical professionals were faced with making the decisions who's going to get the ventilator and who isn't going to get the ventilator. We had scarce resources and we needed more. So healthcare professionals on the front lines were being called upon to constantly make decisions. They knew what the right thing to do was, and they wanted to help people through this and keep them alive, but sometimes their hands were tied and they weren't able to do that because of all the other things that were going on. So the distress is in that moment, what you're going through, and then the injury is the lasting impact that that has on you over time. So the moral injury happens when you do something that goes against your values. So for us as aging professionals, it might be that, when they're calling the local ADRC, we really want to help people get hooked up with resources, but sometimes we're not able to do that for a whole host of reasons. And we can be distressed about that. So we know what the right thing to do is, but sometimes we cannot do that. And we have friends from Adult Protective Services who are here today. We have friends from Adult Day, friends from Congregate Housing. So we're seeing this on so many different levels. So, and as we continue with this conversation, we also want to acknowledge that this is going to be different for everybody. You might be here with some of your colleagues and you might talk about cases, or you might even be sharing, supporting people at your organization. And I might, and I work together at Care to Caregivers, and oftentimes we do have callers who we're all supporting. They might call and speak with a few of us on our team, and it might really, one case might really, really hit me, and I might be really, really distressed about it because I'm feeling that there's not an alignment with what my values are. And it might not bother Edna at all because her values and her priorities might be a little bit different. So even for those of us who are working with colleagues, one case that we're dealing with could really cause me distress, which might lead to moral injury, but it might not bother my coworker at all. So it's really important for us to be aware of that, that this is individual. We're talking about broad concepts here, but it's also very individual. So this is a no judgment zone. So it's not, we're not talking about this to judge ourselves or critique ourselves. It's just to give us knowledge and to give us power to know what we're going through so we can identify it and to be sensitive if we see that a colleague might be struggling with something that maybe they are experiencing moral distress. That's neither good nor bad. It just is. It's something that we note, and hopefully, this knowledge enables us to hold a little bit of space for ourselves and our colleagues as we're dealing with these often complex situations at work. So let's talk about what some examples might be in aging services. And everybody be thinking about this because I'm sure you're thinking about some situations that you might be encountering on your job as well. So, number one, let's start with the big one, right? The needs are greater than the staffing or the funding. So, who here is understaffed? If you want to give us a shout out there in chat or wave your hand or something,
Could use an
you know,
emoji, raise your Zoom hand.
but who, well, I see a few hands getting raised already. I see lots of hands getting raised already. So many of us probably are understaffed. So we might have the funding, we might not be able to hire the people, right? So this is very, very common in aging services. I'm thinking about our home health aide workforce, right? Some parts of the state, we have people who call us from, we just had a caller from Cape May looking for a home health aide, cannot find them a home health aide, right? So very understaffed. So this could be an example. This could lead to moral distress. So very understaffed, right? So it could be a situation where we just don't have the funding, that the funding dried up halfway through the year and there wasn't anything we can do to provide those services for people. And or other examples in human services could be choosing the lesser harm in a complex clinical situation. That we know that maybe there are a few people in the family and many people might have different needs in that family. And sometimes we have to choose the thing that's going to cause the less harm to kind of keep the person safe or to keep the family safe as well. And maybe you can think about some examples from your own experience on the job as well. It could be a safety versus autonomy situation. Maybe there is a client that, really doesn't want to go live in an assisted living or a memory care facility. They really want to stay at home, but they're really unsafe and they're at risk of harm and bodily injury by staying at home. So then we're kind of going against what their wishes are and their personal autonomy to keep them safe. And then the other big one, too, is system failures when the structure fails to support a vulnerable adult. So, and again, many times these things are all out of our control, right? But this is just a few areas that we might see in aging services. So, signs that we may be experiencing some moral injury, and this could be different for everybody, right? And we can feel all of these things for different reasons too. Just if we're feeling guilt, shame, or helplessness doesn't mean that we're experiencing moral injury. We can experience that for lots of reasons. But if we are experiencing moral injury, it might present itself as I have a lot of guilt that I didn't do a good enough job in that last case. I might be shameful about some of the work that I am doing. I might feel really, really helpless. So I think all of us have probably felt some of these things, in our work dealing with older adults and their family members. So we could feel emotionally exhausted, right? Or feel burned out because sometimes it's just one situation like this after another, and that can have a cumulative effect on us. So the there are oftentimes signs of overlap with compassion fatigue and burnout, right? And studies show that these burnout is can be elevated in elder care settings because there's a high emotional load. We're supporting people who are at the end of their life and they might have very limited social supports. So it's understandable that we can be experiencing emotional exhaustion. It might look like anger at the system that, we just start to kind of rage about the way that things are, maybe what the income cutoffs are for the JACK program or the statewide respite program. We could just get mad, or we might get mad at the government, right, for cutting funding for elder care or for all the other, good programs that are supporting people who don't have enough to kind of pay for all these things out of pocket at what pocket as well.
All right, Catherine, I think we're not hearing you at the moment. Can you hear us? All right.
Well,
So, Mary Catherine, I don't know if you can hear me. I might need to share my. Do you have the PowerPoint, Laura?
I do not, but let's see if you
Okay.
can take over slide share, but that might be delayed.
Okay.
Um, let's see.
All right. It looks like I can share, so I'm going to go ahead and try desktop. I imagine all of your
Mhm.
desktops look a little bit like
Yes.
mine.
Yes. Guilty.
Okay, thanks everybody for your patience. I don't know what happened to Mary Catherine. I'll just jump in. So, folks, moral injury can also look at feeling just like hopeless and a loss of sense of meaning and purpose. At why am I doing this job? What's the point of this when there's just so much that's going on and there's so many layers and levels? It could also be withdrawal or cynicism, sort of like, oh, oh, sorry about that. That's just the way it is. Having lots of interesting technical gremlins. Apologize for that. Uh, and you probably have colleagues that you've seen who really have experienced moral injury and are sort of like that. I remember working at some point with someone who would always say, "Well, that's just the way it is." A real sense of hopelessness and a sense of cynicism. So those are really good indicators of moral injury, and so I'm kind of curious, our next slide, how do you know when you're experiencing moral injury? We want to hear from you. So if you could just drop in the chat, what does that look like for you? Is there something that pops up where you sort of say, you know what, I have really been suffering from what's going on here, and I really uh, don't know about it anymore. It, it's people feeling sort of overwhelmed or sad, wanting to zone out, be alone, isolate, withdraw. Some people might feel angry, really angry at the system. Some people might, find that they need to go home and, maybe they are eating too much, or maybe they find they really need that glass of wine at the end of the day. Um, there's no wrong answer here. It's really just, yourselves, probably when you experience moral injury, it can really feel very, very difficult. And it's really diverse for everyone. Yes, someone wrote anger at the system, lack of communication, hopelessness. Absolutely, when a program or policy has limitations that would really otherwise help the person. And I know I have felt that way when I've worked in aging services as well. When you're sort of at the limit and there are programs out there, or the person is maybe 20 or $30 over the limit for some specific program, it can feel really, really difficult. Also, lack of empathy. That's really a great point when you feel like you don't have empathy any longer for folks, for yourself, even some compassion for yourself. That's a great point. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Someone said that they had a client pass away. I apologize. That's really hard, and that's something that I know that we face a lot in aging services. You sort of really wonder if you're doing the right thing and how you do it. And people taking mental health days. I mean, that's a really, really good point as well. Sort of knowing that you need that extra time and space for doing what you need to do to take care of yourself. So, the, go ahead, Edna. Were you going to say something?
Someone also said that someone is looking for assistance. As soon as they name a certain organization, she knows immediate defeat because they are impossible to get in touch with. How many people we know leave messages and never are gotten back to? And we already know that when they mention the organization, that's true.
That's a really good one. That is a really, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing these very, very hard experiences. And it's clear that you all have walked this journey and have been in those difficult situations. So, and having compassion, having empathy for ourselves, and we're also going to talk about some other protective factors that can be helpful, that can support us to prevent moral injury, but also to address it once we have it. And of course, speaking, I am a social worker myself, and I always say we need to make sure we take care of ourselves. I'm sorry, my camera is having a little gremlin issue. Okay, so what are some of the things that affect moral injury? It comes at it from different levels, and this probably doesn't come as really a surprise, but there are
Excuse
different.
me, Michelle, but thank you, and I am back. For I
Oh,
lost
very
power. Why would I lose power? I lost power, and then the Wi-Fi had to reboot. So I am so sorry. So,
I'm back to you.
all right, thank you for stepping in there. Thank you, everybody, for sharing those wonderful examples as well. But let's look a little bit at some things that can impact, that can bring about moral injury. So the first thing might be individual. We want to look. It could be our values, like we might have certain values that we feel are being not respected. It could be like we feel like we don't have control, like we don't have any control over what the income guideline is for the statewide respite program or the JAC program, right? So we don't have any control over what adult protective services, what their guidelines are for when they will intervene and how they can get somebody to a safer place, right? Some things are just out of our power. And then for many of us, if we're new in the job, we might not have a lot of experience in dealing with complex situations. Many of us were learning on the job. So, some of these things you just have to learn as the situations unfold as well. So we know we have strict guidelines for who can be eligible for different programs, and oftentimes they're set by the federal government and by the state government as well. So the second thing, there could be relational factors. It could be communication conflicts with families, and many of us might be supporting individuals where we are hearing from multiple people in that family, and that can make the situation more complex because we're hearing things from two to three different sides as well. And then this is a big one that many of us, I think, do encounter as well is mismatched expectations. We get this at Care to Caregivers a lot, and I'm sure everybody can share their own examples for this as well. But people will call us and say, oh, hi, my mom's coming home from the hospital tomorrow, and I'm going to need a live in every day for 8 hours because I have to go to work. And we're like, oh my goodness, so sorry that you're going through that, but you'll probably get a home health aide for a few weeks for a few hours a week, until your mom is stable. But after that, Medicare is not paying for a home health aide if your mom has memory issues and needs someone to supervise her. So sometimes people are expecting us to do things, and it's not within our power to do those things as well. Maybe you can relate to any mismatched expectations. So, and then the third thing, there might be organizational factors. We've talked about understaffing a bit, and some of us have shared that we are understaffed, that we just don't have enough resources. We don't have enough home health aides, particularly in certain parts of our state as well, to go out and provide the support. We might have the funding for the family to have the home health aide, but we just can't locate the home health aide to provide that service. And then basically just the lack of institutional support, that here we are, boots on the ground, trying to do everything that we can to support someone, but they're just, we do not have the support of the institution to kind of help us with this as well. So these are some areas that can impact moral injury. So we can see that it can be a few things that are feeding into that as well. So let's look at our next slide. Michelle, could you, thank you so much. So moral injury, this is why we're talking about this, because if we're consistently experiencing moral distress, or if it's turning into moral injury because we're chronically dealing with this and we're feeling wounded by our work, moral injury can make it harder to solve problems. So being overwhelmed, and I'm sure everybody can relate to this, makes it harder to think through some of the complex situations that we're dealing with. And I bet that mostly everybody here in this room, nobody's calling us on the telephone or nobody's coming to us to ask for services because everything is perfect and everything is great in their life. People are calling us because something's going wrong, right? There's a new diagnosis. There's something that I can't do for myself anymore that I used to be able to do for myself. And now I need somebody to help me figure out how I'm going to get that taken care of. So people are calling us because they have problems, right? So, and when we're getting that over and over again, and we're kind of feeling stuck and we're feeling that we can help, it can make it harder for us to kind of think through all the things that people keep throwing at us. So, for instance, for myself, I do a lot of support groups. I have a pretty intense support group of spouses who are supporting a husband or a wife who has Alzheimer's disease or another memory disease like that. And sometimes I have up to 25 people in that group, and it goes 2 hours. At the end of that 2 hours, I am completely shot. I am so overwhelmed by everything that everybody has shared that sometimes I'm experiencing distress. I need to take a little break and I need to take a little pause before I can go on and support the next client who's going to need help that day. So, and maybe you all can kind of relate to that as well. When we're feeling overwhelmed, it's kind of hard to move forward. And Sheila is sharing. And the overwhelming feeling can make you feel powerless and you feel like you can't help, causing you to think, why I am doing this. Exactly, Sheila. That's the loop, right? So that's why we're talking about this. So when we have that feeling of hopelessness or feeling of overwhelmed, us having knowledge about these terms might help us better articulate what is going on for us. And Elizabeth is sharing, it takes a lot of energy to hold that compassion and empathy without a release, 100%. And that's why we're going to talk about some things that we can do. And Vicki is sharing, thank you for sharing that example. I feel guilty when I feel that. Vicki, we all feel that way, okay? This is intense work. We are dealing with individuals who are in situations that they never anticipated on being in. And we are lacking on structural supports and funding to provide all the needs that we have for ourselves and our friends as we are aging. So, hey, I think we're all feeling this way. So thank you for sharing that with us too. So, we're just going to take a minute to discuss again, to ask you to reflect here. When have you felt responsible for something you had no power to fix? That might be one thing. Think about that if you want to type in chat and let us know. Or if you haven't felt that way, what individual, team, or organizational triggers have you observed that cause moral injury or moral distress? So think about your position and the people who you're supporting in the situations that you have. Have you ever felt that way, that you felt responsible to fix something? Or can you identify something that's going on within our system, either where you work or in the larger system here in the state or in the country, that continue to cause moral distress for you or your coworkers? And we'll pause while everybody thinks and give everybody a minute to kind of type in chat there. Affordable housing for my clients. Oh my goodness, housing is such a big one. When Medicaid is non-par, 100%, right? It's just not paying for enough, not enough appropriate services, lack of support from family, friends, etc., and income too high to qualify for various programs. And sometimes it's too high by $100, right? Where is the justice in that? Homelessness and housing for our clients. That is just one of the hardest things. No home health aides available for a Jack client, right? We have the funding, we know the family needs it, but we just don't have the resources for that. Anybody else wanna chime in chat there and let us know? What are you noticing? I have felt responsible even though a client's decision was not to accept help and was non-compliant. Yeah, that can hit hard, right? Yeah. And when someone's care needs exceed the program limitations and the family refuses a higher level of care, right? So when we see that the family is really struggling and they're not making use of some things that are out there as well, we can kind of walk away from that. So, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I have a case, a family that I'm supporting, and maybe I'm dealing with them on Friday. I'm thinking about them all weekend long, right? I may be waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm kind of troubled by the situation and the decisions and wondering how that family is doing as well. So sometimes it can really carry over for us. It can carry over into our personal lives. It can carry over into our work life the next day. The wait for Medicaid and for Jack, right? There's lots of things that have to be done for those programs in order for them to be approved, and then lost resources that provided needed services for adults. 100%. And we're in challenging economic times right now. So we're seeing everybody being impacted by but what is available. So thank you everybody for sharing in chat with us all those great examples. So I struggle. Social Security is requiring a client to repay an overpayment, leaving client unable to afford rent and now faces eviction. Oh my goodness. No other housing available for low-income adult, facing homelessness, involved legal services, but Social Security hearing is taking too much time. They don't see the emergency. Thank you for sharing that example. And how complex is that, right? And so many factors are contributing to the distress in this situation as well. Another friend is sharing, I struggle with my own ability to trust my ability to remember all the details. And if everything was addressed timely and appropriately, especially when there is no one else for the person for assistance. Oh, that hits, right? Yeah, sometimes we're the only one who is there for the person. So we feel like we're taking on all the responsibility, and we can kind of ruminate about that. Did I do everything? Did I write everything down? Did I call everyone? 100%. I can definitely relate to that. And Thelma is sharing the lack of housing services and the ability helping clients accumulate documentation for a program. Oh my goodness, we know how involved it is to apply for these programs, right? And it can be hard to get all those bank statements and to get all of that other information as well. And sometimes that holds up people from being able to access services and funding that is there for them. So you are so right. So these are such great examples. Thank you everybody for sharing them. It seems like we can kind of all relate to this. So coping with not enough, here are some things that we can do to help us with that. It's good for us to think about what is the system responsible for versus what is my responsibility. So, it's not our responsibility to find housing for everyone. Like we just do not have that power. If we were billionaires and we had a fund that was set up that we could just, give out money to people, then that might be within our responsibility, right? But that's not the situation for most of us. But we really have to stop and we really have to distinguish between what we are personally responsible for and what the system is responsible for. Just because they're calling us on the phone or they're showing up in our office and they're asking for support doesn't mean that it's something that we're responsible to fix. So it's just good to give ourselves a mental check for that and go back to that. The second thing to consider is that a good enough mindset, that adopting this mindset can help us feel better about what we are able to provide within the constraints of the situation that we are in. Do we wish we could give that person secure housing immediately that was really appropriate for their needs? Yes. We might not be able to do that. Maybe we're able to locate them some temporary housing, maybe even for a week, and maybe that is good enough. So kind of just switching. I wish I could have done more, but I'm really glad that I could do this little bit, and focusing on that can be helpful. Talking with your colleagues for sure. That's something that I don't think we could run Care to Caregivers if we weren't talking with each other every single day, because the situations that present to us are so complex that sometimes you kind of get stuck down one path, and then when we talk with our colleagues, they have a whole different idea, and that opens up another path that we can then kind of pursue. So supporting each other and talking with each other. And I'm wondering how that goes for everybody. Like, is everybody talking with their colleagues every day? Do you feel that you have teammates that you can reach out to kind of run some of these situations by? Would just love to hear about that. If you want to type in chat and let us know about that too. And Sheila is also sharing, it feels like the government services put so many roadblocks in the way to get those who need help the help they need. You're right. It's not easy. It is not easy. So, but talking with team members can really help us kind of navigate these challenging situations. It can help us explore what is in our control. Like, we might not be able to go to the bank and get the bank statements for our client so they can apply for this benefit program, but maybe we can call them on the phone twice that week to say, hey, how did you make out getting to the bank to get those bank statements? Or maybe they couldn't get there because they didn't have transportation. So maybe we could help them access the county transportation. Maybe that is something that is within our control that we can do to help them move towards their end goal. And Donna is sharing, I couldn't do this alone. Networking and reaching out to others are vital to my success with my clients. 100%. So thank you, Donna, for corroborating that yeah, we need each other. This is not work that you can do alone. If you feel like you do not have people to kind of talk with, and that's something that you want to go to your supervisor and you want to discuss with them. Like, hey, in the training they said it's really important to kind of be collaborating with colleagues on these complex situations, to see if there's ways that you can kind of implement that for yourself at the workplace. And then the last thing that we can do, and one of our friends already mentioned that in the chat here, is just document your efforts. So I know that's important for all of us, and we all have the different systems that we are using. But just writing down what I did do. Maybe I wasn't able to get them housing, secure housing, but maybe I educated them about what their resources were. Maybe I made 10 phone calls and contacted 10 agencies. And maybe most of them were dead ends, but hey, I still did that. So you're kind of categorizing and you're kind of reminding yourself, okay, I didn't get to the end goal where the client wanted to get to, but I did these 15 things, and that was all that I could do. So taking that moment to write all of that down, even the dead ends, I discussed with this person and I called this agency and I looked this up and I provided these numbers to the person who was seeking support. So just documenting what you are doing can be something that can help us cope with the not enough mentality. So wondering, all of our friends who are here today, how do you cope with the not enough services for your clients?
Mary Catherine, I just want to mention that when I was on the phones at the beginning, we do peer support on the phones. And Mary Catherine was in the next cubby and overheard me say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And this will always stick with me. Mary Catherine said, just talking might have helped this person. Even though I couldn't do anything that was definitely going to help as far as giving them money, giving them an aid, or doing something physical, She said just letting them vent, just letting them talk, and knowing that someone cared was a help. So when you're thinking not enough, always think I am at least doing something more than they'll get from maybe a different agency or maybe someone else that doesn't answer the phone. Just being there is a help for your client.
Oh yeah, thank you, Edna. 100%. We're if you're engaging with the person, you're doing something. You're there for them. You're listening. You're troubleshooting. And Holly says this is so true. So how about some of our other friends? What are you doing that kind of helps you cope with the not enough resources? I have to sometimes think outside of the box if there are any resources. Right. So yeah, thinking outside the box, so very, very so, so keep thinking, everybody. Keep typing there in chat. We're going to keep going in the interest of time here. So, one thing that we can do, because sometimes it can, I know I get kind of unnerved when I kind of feel like I'm called upon to do something and I don't have enough to kind of manage that, is we can tap into emotional regulation and practice some things that can help us with this. And our friend is sharing listening, providing a welcoming, warm concern, explaining hurdles to the client, and then figuring out other ways around solutions. Very important. Thank you. And Donna is sharing advocate for change, right? That we can do what we can with the client, but then we can go a whole other different direction and we can become an advocate for change as well. I love that. So, one thing that we can do, and we're just going to go over a quick skill that we can use, is the stop skill. And this is something we can use on the job. We can use it in our personal life. We can teach it to our clients as well. But this is a really, really helpful practice. And we're just going to do a quick little video on this. You might have some other mindfulness practices that you do that kind of bring you back to the moment, take you away from the overwhelm about what's going on out there, and bring you back to the moment, that you are safe in this moment, that you're doing the best that you can do. We talked a little bit about the cognitive reframing. This is a helpful phrase that that Michelle brought to us that we really love. I can do some things, even if I can't do everything. So just appreciating that I am able to do some things. So we're going to just look at a quick little video here, and this is a stop practice, and this is something that that we can all engage in. So let's listen for a minute.
So, Mary Catherine, I'm going to have to stop sharing, and I don't think I have that.
Oh, all right, then I'm going to start
Are you going to
sharing
start
again.
sharing?
Thank you, everybody,
Okay.
for your patience with us. All right, and just give me a minute here to get set up again. Sorry, I forgot to optimize for sound. Lordy, lordy.
We have the tech gremlins today for some
Right,
reason.
yeah. I never lose power. Why did I lose power? There's not even a storm, people.
Stop. When you feel your anger or any other big distressing emotion seems to be and feel out of control, the first thing to do is stop. Literally, stop, freeze, pause, don't move a muscle. Label your emotion and then take a step back. Take a step back, take a breath, take 3 to 5 deep breaths just to slow down. Don't let your emotions control you. Remember, you can manage and control your emotions. You are the boss, not your emotions. Take a moment to observe your surroundings, observe your thoughts, your automatic beliefs, observe your body sensations. Take a moment to reflect on what led up to this big triggering emotional state. Finally, proceed mindfully. Ask yourself some of these questions. What are your goals in the situation? What would make it worse or better? What would make you feel successful? What actions or things would you need to do in order to attain and achieve that goal? When in doubt, just simply stop.
So, has anybody ever used that practice before? Curious to know. And while people are chiming in that, I just want to acknowledge one of our friends is sharing. Sometimes it's hard for me to see the limitations. I feel upset with the funding and budget cuts on the federal level programs. It seems like certain programs have been more difficult to connect consumers with. Certain organizations will not even pick up their phones. I do take the time to pray. Sometimes through prayer, a possible solution does come to me. I also may talk to my supervisors on bigger issues that I cannot resolve. Then I document my efforts. I know I can only do the best I can with the resources I have available to assist my community. Wow, you really shared so much in there about all the great things that you are doing to manage in these challenging situations. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So, and maybe if everybody here decides to take a stop and just observe, like our friend shared here, she or he taps into prayer. So that might be something that you might want to do at that point too. But just taking the pause just to stop and to observe and to tap into to deeper reserves may be able to help us. And Linda is sharing listening and allowing the person the time they deserve. Also talk with your team. Someone may have encountered something similar that you are not aware of, and they may have resources you don't know about. Thank you for sharing. And there is power in prayer. Yeah, we all have different ways that we kind of fall on our higher power to help us through challenging situations as well. So I remember not to let my emotions dictate my actions. Thank you for sharing. Yes, it helps me to maintain my composure with fewer regrets. I love that. So taking the stop moment of just stopping, taking a breath, observing, and then proceeding, that can help us be more aligned with how we want to act and have less regrets at the end of the day. And Diane is sharing, no, I have not used that method, but I like it. Yes, we are all human and have our moments. This method sounds foolproof, easy to do while working. You're right. It could take 30 seconds and nobody knows that you are doing it. So hopefully you will try this and you're going to get like a little, it'll be on a Word document. You can print this out. You can put it near your computer and remind yourself to do a stop. And Sheila is sharing yesterday, I just went outside on a beautiful day, stepped out of the office, enjoyed some sun, and recentered myself to return to the office and my next client. So that was taking a longer stop. I love that. So stopping, you took a breath outside, you observed, and then you proceeded back to at work. And Julia sharing, Dr. Charles Stanley used to say, halt, do not get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. I love that. So we've got stop and we've got halt as ways that we can kind of tap into our self-regulation. And these are just simple things that we can do on the job. They involve self-care. We oftentimes don't have a lot of time to do things for our self-care on the job, and some of us have busy lives. We can't be doing a lot. So self-care is really, really important for all of us, right? So would love to hear if you want to type in chat there. What are you doing for your self-care right now? Type in chat there and let us know what is helping to support you right now. So doing these things on the job, doing things off the job for our self-care helps us stay resilient so we can deal with all of these complex situations that are coming up. It helps improve patient safety as well when we're more centered and we're more focused and we're less overwhelmed. Our clients do better too. And it helps us stay more engaged at work and we have better outcomes for the people we are supporting. And we have lots of things people are sharing in here, getting good sleep, exercising, walking, hanging out with loved ones, going for a walk right after work to clear my mind, journaling, taking a walk on my lunch hour, swimming laps. Love those things. All those things are so important after work. Gardening helps to improve my mental clarity and physical well-being. I wish we could have plants in the office. I love that too. Maybe try to bring in a plant. Binge watching a show. Who doesn't love to do that? Music, going on a walk outside, supervision with peers. So all of those things. Thank you everybody for sharing those wonderful examples. So we want to keep doing those things in our personal life. And then on the job, we want to do those things like connect with our colleagues, reach out for support support, try the stop technique as ways to kind of support us on the job as well. So spending time with family, taking time with grandchildren, great things for self-care. Thank you everybody for sharing those things. And I'm going to turn it over now to Michelle, and she is going to talk with us about CPR.
Thanks, Mary Catherine. And a lot of the suggestions that folks are giving are really in the framework of self-care. There's so many different frameworks out there, but really evidence shows that when someone is experiencing moral injury or any kind of burnout, it's really helpful to focus on specific areas like focusing on your body, hydration, movement, and sleep, which a lot of you already mentioned. Also focusing on your mind and your thoughts, journaling, supervision, creative problem solving, again, things you already have talked about. The emotions and the emotional component of our work can really take its toll, making sure that we're setting boundaries. We're noticing our feelings and naming them. I mean, this basic stuff that we probably talk to our clients about, we need to practice for ourselves as well. And finding those connections, it sounds like you all are doing a great job networking with your colleagues, with your supervisors, having team rituals that are supportive, and finding that sense of meaning and purpose. Like, why is it that we do the work that we do? I always joke and say, are we in this line of business because, we think it's sexy or we're going to earn lots of money? Are we on MTV? No, the work that we do is really powerful, and we all went into this field sort of thinking that we wanted to make a difference. And sometimes we can lose that. So, all kinds of suggestions that could be helpful. Next slide, please. And also, as Mary Catherine has said, making sure that we're supporting our colleagues. It can be painful sometimes to watch our colleagues really struggle, particularly, if someone's going through a particularly hard time or a newer colleague. We may need to give them a little bit of extra. We may need to normalize the reactions and emotions that they're feeling, also encouraging them to remember their own values and why they're doing the work they're doing, and encourage them to seek supportive supervision. And sometimes you maybe have had to do this, I've had to do this, is to ask people if they have someone they can talk to, right? Is there someone that you could talk to about what's going on at work and your stress? Maybe have you ever considered maybe going to employee assistance or maybe talking to a counselor? These are necessary things sometimes when people get so overwhelmed. It's important if you see something and someone really struggling with moral injury, maybe to say something. Next slide, please. So I want to introduce you all to a problem-solving framework called CPR. And, we've talked, Mary Catherine has gave so many examples. I've heard from all of you in the chat, so many examples of aging services professionals and behavioral health service professionals often deal with a lot of really difficult situations that really need flexible problem solving. And there are really no easy solutions. There are a lot of frameworks out there, but we selected this one because this is from the World Health Organization, and I thought it kind of had an easy to remember strategy to it. And it's called CPR, which stands for Calming the Mind, Prioritize the Problem, and Responding Strategically. Next slide, please. We've talked about the complex cases. I think you all have had really some really sad examples and difficult examples of complex cases, which are really impacted by, again, caregiver strain, when the caregivers are really overwhelmed and feeling like they don't know where to go or what to do. When the person that you're supporting lives in poverty and they don't have a lot of extra resources for food or housing, that's really challenging. And literally looking at the few resources that we have that are out there, and then looking at system fragmentation. So I'm worked in mental health, I've worked in aging, and those systems are still not great at talking to one another. I see a comment in the chat here of, oh goodness, a colleague who isn't supportive and picks apart the phone call, and some suggestions on how to work on a colleague who is negative with someone else. That's a really good question. I don't know, Mary Catherine, if you have any thoughts about how you would suggest that.
Well, I kind of go back to like reframing like the situation that Edna mentioned, sometimes people talk down about how they are supporting a person. Look for the positives in that situation and then highlight that. So, take control of the conversation. Boy, like Edna, I really appreciate how you showed up for that client, and that was a long phone call, and she was kind of yelling on the other end, but you were really, really patient with her. That was a real gift that you offered in that moment. And it's great that you contacted those 5 agencies and just reframing it. The other thing that comes up for us a lot too, and probably everybody can relate to this. Care to caregivers were on the telephone. So somebody will call us, and probably for you too, when they're calling you, it's because things are kind of falling apart in their life and they need help. They need somebody to help them fix it. And we can be overwhelmed thinking, oh my God, I did nothing to help them fix this really awful situation that they're in. I always bring up, let's everybody take a pause here. This was a lifetime being created. Okay. This has been, family dynamics have been going on in this family forever. We're not going to solve that in a 10-minute phone call. The situation with that the person's in right now has been developing over years. This chronic condition that they've had has been developing over years. So just a little reality check on that. So, and we might have to be the reality check for the rest of our team, and we might have to be the reframer for the rest of our team too.
I also
That's my
think
2 cents.
excuse me, I also think that when you're dealing with a negative worker, a coworker who's putting other people down, we have to realize that's their issue, not yours. A bully is not happy. A bully has something else going on in their life. And sometimes we have to empathize with them, but not take it to heart, Casey, that someone sees everything negative that's on them, excuse me, and that's their issue. You're not doing anything wrong. Your coworkers are not doing anything wrong. And someone is seeing the negative in every answer. We have to just say, not my issue. Sometimes it's hard to talk to somebody like that because everything is negative for them, but that is their issue. That is their problem. And we need to not make it ours as well. We know we're doing an awesome job. We know our coworkers are, and we have that one negative person. It's more like ignore them rather than give them the time
Yeah,
for
or
them to
just
vent.
and a way to kind of wrap them up is to say, yeah, this is a really challenging situation. I think we're all kind of feeling it and we wish we could do more. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So we're going to be talking about the CPR framework for problem solving. As I mentioned, it's calm the mind, which is really kind of preparing your brain in a way to tackle a difficult situation. As we've already talked about a little bit, as we have difficult situations, sometimes our anxiety, I know that comes up for me a lot. When I get nervous, I'm like, I have no problem solving ability anymore. Or if you get angry or upset in some way, it's really important to take that pause, take that stop, take that halt, calm the mind briefly. They even call them micro skills, meaning it's a small thing that you could do to interrupt your cognition, your thinking. That will give you the space to then think about the problem, prioritize what a problem is in that moment, and then respond strategically. Next slide, please. We talked about the stop skill, but there's other skills that you can use. Some people use things like someone mentioned going outside, someone else mentioned prayer as a strategy for them. There's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is really interesting. 5 things you see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear. 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you taste. That can kind of get you back in your body and out of your thinking. And sort of check in with yourself a little bit and sort of say, wait a minute, how am I in this moment? Am I overwhelmed or am I calm enough to be able to think? Next slide, please. And so being able to identify that one problem, people were giving some great examples of really complex cases, and then being able to pick that one priority. And you have to think about what that one problem is. And sometimes we call it a problem pileup in the classes that I teach when, someone it's clear you meet with someone and there's like clearly you could come up with 12 identifiable problems, right? But you really can only think of one thing at a time. And that priority needs to be really all about safety, of course, for the person. But there is that element of client and family preference. Someone mentioned it's so hard when someone refuses help that they need, and that tension between autonomy and safety is really a challenge when we're working with older adults or other folks who have disabilities. Feasibility, knowing what is actually possible right now. So, if someone, I think someone gave a really powerful example of working with a client who was close to eviction based on having their uh, Social Security funds being withdrawn. I mean, what can you actually do in a situation like that? Like, it would be great if the organization could write a $10,000 check, right, and help that person get housing. That's unfortunately not feasible. But knowing the things that we can actually do, making the referrals, following up with the person, helping them get to court for the hearing, etc. And then thinking about the legal and ethical constraints, knowing, I mean, when particularly for anyone, and if you have a license, you also have that extra layer of ethics and legal obligation if you feel, that you need to follow through. So prioritizing one problem and then responding strategically. Once you figured out that one problem, brainstorming 6 to 8 ideas of things that might be possible, being creative, outside the box ideas. Pick one solution based on safety, preference, and feasibility, and then create an action plan. What's really important when we're in these really difficult and complex situations is to figure out one thing that you can do, an action step in the next 48 hours. Why? Because that gives you a sense of something is happening. It helps the client feel like things are moving forward. Even though there are a lot of problems, it's important to feel that there's one step that you've done to move things forward. And then evaluate, did that work? Did it solve the problem? If not, revise and check in. Next slide, please. So we are going to ask for you to practice some of the things that we've talked about in terms of CPR. I think I'll choose one scenario, Mary Catherine, and ask everyone to sort of think it through, where we're going to ask you, we'll put you into small group, in breakout rooms, and we'll ask you to identify the priority problem and then 6 to 8 possible solutions and one action that you would choose for the next 48 hours to sort of get that going. So we're going to give Laura a second to get our breakout rooms going. If you need any help, please do let us know. We'll be giving you 5 minutes, and then we'll ask you to come back and we'll talk about this. So, Mary Catherine, can you move us forward on the slide deck to, let's keep going. Let's keep going. How about that one? Let's do that scenario. And so everyone will try to share this particular slide to all of the breakout rooms, and we'll be asking you to identify a priority problem, list some solutions, and pick one action. And I'm just going to put that in the chat. And then Edna, Mary Catherine, and I will be checking out the breakout rooms to help get the conversation started. Oh, I like it. I like making the written list. So rewarding to cross off an item. It is really important actually to help us feel like we're making changes.
So we'll come back at about 11:45, we're thinking,
Yeah.
11:46-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay, thank you, friends. See you soon in your room.
Michelle, I think you can share to breakout room.
Oh, wait, maybe I have to do that.
I think Mary Catherine, yeah.
How do I do
Okay.
that? Is it broadcast? Is that the word?